Hello again, friend. Happy Thursday. And if you're listening real time, happy freaking Halloween. This is my absolute favorite holiday. And it is simply 100% solely because of the household I grew up in. My parents were big, fun weirdos, and they totally embraced this very unusual tradition on the street that they moved into. The street had this really big Halloween extravaganza that they would put on, and some houses would participate and some wouldn't. It wasn't mandatory. It definitely wasn't like government funded or sanctioned. You didn't sign this into your contract when you bought a house on the street. It was just kind of, hey, just so you know, this is what you're getting into in this neighborhood. And they totally went for it. And I just remember year after year, my dad took proper time off of his real job to do Halloween for a week. And my mom was still teaching at the time, so I don't think she necessarily took time off for the week, but she definitely left school earlier than normal because she was one of those teachers that would work until like 8 p.m. So she came right home every day and would just set up the interior. My dad was on the exterior, and it's just become this beautiful tradition. Anyway, that's just me sending you my best vibes. This is going to be one of those episodes where the intro is probably as long as the episode itself because we're continuing our series on cognitive biases and tendencies. And today I'm giving you a short snippet, but it's a single idea that I think is worth highlighting on its own so that you can marinate on this all week. I'm going to prep you for some of the things you're going to hear in the episode just so you're tuned in to what is coming at you because it kind of does move quickly. Again, if you're just tuning in, hi, I'm Kirsten. I'm your decision coach for the episode. And in this series, I'm pulling apart sections of a workshop I ran in a coaching group. Not usually how we do our podcast here, but we're mixing it up. And this is full of things that, frankly, you need to know as a person operating the heavy machinery that is a human being. Yourself. So today we're exploring this cognitive tendency called causal attribution. Essentially, we tend to infer causality, why things happen, why things don't happen. We're going to break that down and I'm going to explain a little bit of where this tendency comes from. The first thing I mentioned is recency, which I'll explain. The second thing is controllability. So just so you know, these are the phrases and terms coming at you in this episode. And I really encourage you to just digest it for the week. Pay attention. How often do you assume you know why something happened or why something didn't happen? What causes are you attributing results that you experience in the world to? How does it help you? How does it hurt you potentially? How does it create more self-blame than necessary? How does it limit your perspective when it doesn't need to? So I really hope you enjoy tuning in to this cognitive tendency of yours this week. And I hope you have the best freaking Halloween. Let's dive in. Causal attribution is an interesting one. This is a big one, especially for business owners, people in relationships, romantic or otherwise, people attempting to achieve things for the first time. Knowing that you are prone to causal attribution is super helpful. We tend to infer causality. We find things to blame or things to credit for results that we experience based on these different cues. You know how in our conscious evaluation process where we go through what worked well, what didn't work well to create the results you're looking for, and what are you going to do differently? This is a sneaky thing that can impact our answers. We could have a result we want, maybe sign a new client. We can run an evaluation on how did the week go? What worked well this week to create the results we want? And we can think, if I didn't sign a new client this week, what didn't work well was I didn't send 5 emails like I planned on. The part of our brain that wants to blame that cause for the result that we're experiencing is because of causal attribution. Really handy to be aware of, especially if you're going to be a conscious observer of yourself in the world like we are. And running these evaluations of how did this interview go? How did this presentation go? I really encourage this way of thinking about things. First of all, to save us from decades of rumination, conscious evaluation can be so helpful for pulling out data. What did work well? What didn't work well? It's just really handy to remember we can't trust our brain's interpretation all of the time because our brain is going to want to say, this is why this thing didn't happen, or this is why this thing did happen. It's not always right. It thinks it's right for these reasons. Recency. We tend to credit the most recent event for the ultimate outcome, even when there's a sequence of events. It's this thing that we do with a game-winning buzzer shot. We can say, oh, that's the thing that won the game. They were down by 1 point, and then at the buzzer, there was a final shot. Did that shot win the game? Technically, you could say yes. Did it win the game more than a shot in the second quarter, though? Can we actually attribute this result to this single cause? We also have the cue of controllability. This is why we love blaming ourselves for anything, because we are inclined to look for how we can avoid mistakes and repeat negative experiences in the future, and how we can repeat good outcomes. It can be super common to credit outside circumstances for our good results. People like us sometimes need to work harder at giving ourselves credit for creating the positive results we experience. But something I do know about us is we can be very quick to take the blame for causing any result that we're not happy with. I wrote in here, it's easier to imagine undoing your own behavior than somebody else doing something different or circumstances going differently. It's like we don't like the results that we're experiencing to the extent that we want to find an escape hatch from this version of reality and go find some way we could do something different. And it feels like a good use of our time. It feels productive, but it's really just blaming ourselves. A couple more things to draw some attention to: abnormality. We can easily assume unusual events are causes. And I put the example here. If you messed up, made a mistake, had a wrong slide on a presentation, or set a wrong date, but you feel like you're normally flawless, you normally have excellent standards for yourself, you can blame that for an outcome because it's abnormal. Like, well, nobody signed up for this thing, and clearly I messed up when I normally never mess up, so that's to blame. We're just giving ourselves a little permission to not trust our brain's conclusions about what's the cause of anything. And something that's interesting that's also good to pull out is we can more easily blame actions than inaction. And this is where a lot of our self-blame and rumination comes in. It's easier to think about that thing that we said, that thing that we did, or the way that we did that thing. It's so easy to hone in on that and pick it apart and blame ourselves for it, because it's something we can see. It's way easier to think about that causing something than the millions of things that we didn't do or say. So what to do? Recognize that why questions are truly unanswerable. When we want to spend a lot of time and energy questioning why did something happen, a really big gift to shortcut a lot of time and energy expense is to recognize it is a truly unanswerable question at its core. Having this healthy detachment from needing why answers can be a way to get a little freedom from this causal attribution trap we can get in. And finding the most valuable why questions to ask. If we were going to ask a why question, let's not get lost in the unanswerable version of it. Let's find a valuable why question to ask that's going to help us move forward. Hey, want to find out your decision style? Obviously, go take the decision style quiz. It's in the show notes and at kirstenparker.com/quiz. We all have our style when it comes to making decisions, but do you know how to use your default way of thinking to your advantage? Or do you mainly get stuck in the most annoying parts of overthinking and people pleasing? The decision style quiz has your answers, my friend. Take it right now at kirstenparker.com/quiz.